Welcome back, everybody, to the MLB DFS strategy show from Awesemo.com. Yes, there's still baseball going on after quite the weekend in sports. Got NBA, NHL still going on. Of course, NFL. Terry made some money yesterday. Terry McBride is the co-host. You guys saw us a couple times last week. Could give us a couple times this week, talking some MLB DFS. How's it going, Terry?
Doing good, bud. Doing good. Like you said, it was a good little start to the NFL season for me, so happy about that. And, ready to dive back into baseball. I have pretty much no idea what happened in baseball yesterday, of course, like everybody. But right. We know what's going on for today, so, pretty psyched to dig in.
Yeah, I took a peek at some of the tournaments yesterday. They were pretty small across the sites, so I wanted to see. I'm not even sure if a lot of the pros were playing, so it actually might be a pretty good time if you do really love playing MLB DFS. Maybe you're a lower stakes player. Getting in on some of the action on Sunday, maybe the pro players that are paying attention, especially because it locks usually right as NFL starts, might actually be some good contests you can find there. You're going to get some casual people. But yeah, I mean, tons of money to be won yesterday, not by me per se, as I took a pretty rough, I had a pretty rough week one, but looking forward to playing some MLB. I like you, Terry. I didn't play yesterday as I was focused on some NFL, some showdowns. And this is obviously an MLB show, but we do have to talk about what we've got going on. Already a ton of showdown content. There's 2 Monday night games tonight. So if you like reading some of Emacs articles, Zach Bruner has some NFL betting articles as well. If you're into that, go over to Awesemo Odd Shopper if you want to find kind of the best tools around and get the best line, because why wouldn't you want to get the best line? If you're making some wagers tonight legally, of course, head over to Odd Shopper. It's a really cool tool. The guys behind the scenes did an awesome job. So go show them some love and again, get the best lines and check out all of our betting content. We are, of course, presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo has CSV edit. So if you're looking to play some of these MLB contests tonight, we've got some multi-entry tournaments. They're $15 tonight, 10 max. So in MLB, you're not going to get a ton of the 150 maxes like we talk about on some other sites, but they do have some 25 maxes, especially on non-NFL days. They've got NHL, they've got golf going on, US Open this week, another really exciting few days in sports. And then we'll creep into week 2. NBA, the conference finals are going on right now. Not quite the finals. It's just so weird to have all this together. Like, I have to remind myself that there's still NHL, there's still NBA going on. I've been playing some NHL, and I like playing over on Yahoo because it's multiple goalies. So some people hate the goalies. I kind of, I like the goalie tilt over on Yahoo. And then, of course, NFL. Massive contests posted over on Yahoo for week 2. They've got a 350K baller, 10% going to first. So a nice flat payout structure. And they're only taking 12% management fee. That's about 3/4 of what you're going to get elsewhere. It's a really great deal playing on Yahoo. They had a huge overlay in their $10 yesterday. I got into that. I maxed that out and it did not go well. But I like that I was actually making money right as the game start. You can see how much money you're currently winning. I was making more than the entries. And that's always nice. It went downhill from there, but not Yahoo's fault. That is user error. So go support Yahoo. They've got some pretty awesome contests, especially if you are looking to play some NFL. All right, Terry. Do you want to just quick talk about what's going on with the slates today? We've got an early lock over on DraftKings. And then what else after that? Because it seems like you've got a pretty good grasp on this throughout the sites.
Yeah, so I had to kind of Frankenstein my sheet together last night for the early bird with Jason. So I've got at least where things were. If anything changed while I was asleep, apologies. But looks like DK has a 4 o'clock or 4:10 lock for a 7-game slate that they're calling their main slate. But that includes 3 games that are 7-inning games that are the first game of a doubleheader. So we're going to have some wacky lineups in there potentially, and we're going to have some restricted potential with only 7 innings in those games. FanDuel has a early slate that includes 2 of the evening games and whatever the 4 o'clock game is. I think it's the Phillies Marlins game. And then they also have a 3-game main slate that includes the 2 evening games and the late Dodgers Padres game. So they're doing 2 separate 3-game slates that include 2 of the same games. And DraftKings is just doing 1 big 7-game for everything. So it's going to be fun. Apologies in advance to everybody out there if my pricing is wrong as we're talking about some of these things, because of the way I had to put it together. Some of the pricing moved around to the wrong spots. So we'll see what happens. But the data is correct, which is what matters.
Yeah. So hopefully Terry and I can get on the same page as far as which game, which part of the doubleheader we're talking about. I believe I've got all the games showing up. So we'll just kind of run through the 7 for DraftKings and FanDuel. Just DraftKings. Actually, FanDuel and Yahoo are like you said, they're running some different times. Weird early slate on FanDuel. Yahoo is going to lock at 7:35 Eastern. So right after the Monday night game starts, you can put in some Yahoo MLB lineups, 1K to first in their $15 10 max. It's a pretty good tournament. So let's start here with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. And if I'm wrong on any pitchers, feel free to let me know. But this is what I've got so far. I've got Pittsburgh at a 2.3 implied total here, and then a 3.8 for the Reds. Cody Ponce and Trevor Bauer on the slate. And I believe I have this one right because Bauer is very, very popular. 10-8 on DraftKings, minuscule total against him. He's going to be one of the more popular pitchers on the day. Got to love the matchup here. Probably not even that interesting to talk about just because of how good he's been, how good the matchup is. Is there any reason to get off Bauer here? That's kind of the question that I like to ask with these super obvious stud pitchers.
So not really. I mean, he is just absolutely in a prime spot. You mentioned the matchup. He's been pitching lights out all year. So he's just absolutely dealing. Might be the best pitcher in baseball with what he's doing right now. He's found a great mix of pitches. So yeah, I love Bauer in this spot. The one thing we have to be aware of course, is it is one of the 7-inning games. For pitching, that could play to our advantage, especially with a guy like Bauer. We were talking about it on the early bird last night. You get a 7-inning game, that's a really good opportunity for Bauer to get to that complete game. And a pitcher like him against a team like this, that could be a complete game shutout. I mean, he could just breeze through this lineup for 7 innings, strike out a bunch of hitters. So I really like the spot for him. It makes a ton of sense to me that he's getting as much attention as he is. So I don't think there's anything we really can do to get off that 56% ownership for him. It's just such a good spot. There are other good pitchers on the slate, of course. You can pivot to a Kershaw, a Lamet, and do fine, but he's just in this matchup by far, I think, the class of the slate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the complete game shutout is very live here. The 2.3 runs, I was looking at that kind of funny. I can't remember the last time I've seen a total that low, but then as you were talking, it dawned on me that it is a 7-inning game. So yeah. It makes sense for the low totals. For bats, that's obviously not optimal. I don't think this is going to be a game you're going to target for bats much anyways. Maybe some Cincinnati guys against Cody Ponce. But yeah, Bauer was showing up in around 90% of my lineups if I were to make 150 for the slate. Over on DraftKings, just the premier option. There's no one I want to target against him. It's a 7-game slate. I think it's even a little too cute to be looking to play Pirates, especially in a 7-inning game with limited opportunities and a tiny implied total. What about Ponce on the other side? 4K, and he threw 71 and 77 pitches in his last 2 outings. Going up against the Reds, I mean, let's say in a 9-inning game, you give him like a 4.5 total here. Not too bad for a 4K pitcher. Is he someone you're interested in on DraftKings specifically?
So I think for 4K, you can definitely roll him out just as a pricing play, just as a guy who's going to pitch a couple innings, most likely not take in negative, and give you a few points for that money. I mean, that's half the price of, well, not half, but it's 2/3 the price of a couple of the bats on the slate. So I think we can definitely do that and weaponize it. I do like the Reds offense. I would be concerned about the upside there. They're 10th in baseball, 49 homers against righties this year, 194 ISO, 97 WRC plus. So trending toward league average WRC plus, a little below. 24.6% strikeout rate is a little up, but 12.3% walk rate. So showing some patience against the pitcher who doesn't have a ton of experience could be a recipe for a bad spot for him. But again, only $4,000. Even if he gets a little bit dinged up, as long as he doesn't take it too negative, we're not really worried about it. So I think we can justify it. He's not much of a pitcher. Just looking at some of his minor league career, been a bunch of years at Double-A, mid 3s to 4x FIP at Double-A, not a ton of strikeouts, low to mid 20s, which in Double-A doesn't really translate upward. 17.3% so far in the show this year. So not much there, but again, it's all price.
Jack in chat says, is there any data out there on taking pitchers or hitters in these 7-inning games? Advantage, disadvantage? I would say, so I haven't done the work, but just based on how projections shake out for these 7-inning games for hitters, it's obviously a disadvantage. I mean, you're capping your upside. It's already hard enough to hit on a stack, but you don't get those extra 2 innings if you're the road team, and the home team, if you can only get 6 innings out of your stack. I mean, that's a third of the game that you're just taking out. So I would say very clear disadvantage for hitters. For pitchers, I don't really know, because not a lot of pitchers go deep into the games anymore. And you would say, yeah, okay, you're capping the upside for Bauer if he has a great performance. He can't go 9 innings, but he can still get the complete game shutout. That's more attainable in a 7-inning start. So I would say it caps kind of upside all around. But for pitchers, I don't really have that big of an issue for it. Plus, if they can get to 5 innings, they can still get the win, and they only need 2 innings of the bullpen.
Right.
Instead of closing it down for 4, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's something I was going to bring up. Is it I think increases it. I haven't done the math on it either, but I think it would definitely follow that it increases the win equity and the ability to book that, because especially for a team with a strong bullpen or a team with a strong closer and a couple weak arms in the middle, that just shrinks that window of time that those guys are going to have to be in there. So I absolutely agree with you there. And you're right. These guys aren't pitching 9-inning complete game shutouts anyway. So it's not like we're taking a lot off the top of them, but it's definitely a disadvantage to the bats. So if you guys out there, if you're building with these stacks, and I do think you can build with the Reds a little bit today, particularly like the top of the lineup there, but you just have to be really aware that we're taking a plate appearance, possibly 2 off the top of these guys, off the top of their bats. So you're going to need them to go off early in this game and get you a couple extra plate appearances there to get anything out of it. We saw one of these stacks, I forget which one, like last week or the week before, in a 7-inning game explode for 8, 10, 11 runs, something like that. But it's not something we can rely on. It's definitely going to be a disadvantage, and it would take them down my board as far as ranking stacks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why it's so valuable to subscribe to a site or do your own projections, because you can just kind of play them how they're projected, like you normally would. Upside is capped. Like Terry said, you're going to take away a plate appearance. That doesn't mean that the stack can't go off. That just means it's less likely to go off because of those extra couple, extra at bat or extra couple at bats. So that's why you're seeing the low implied total. But we've seen 3.8 implied total teams win tournaments multiple times this season, and we'll continue to see it pop up every once in a while. So, yeah, I think there are bats to like here. If Winker, if he's in the lineup at 3,900, I like him against Ponce. Votto leading off for 4,200. Who would be your favorite bat on this Red side if you could only pick one?
I'm a big Winker fan there, but you threw him out, so I'll just grab Suarez there. No real struggles, righty, just tremendous amount of power. I get a very good home run mark on him on my home run model here, so I like the ability for him to put one over the wall despite a little bit of struggles this year.
And then, so great question by Jack before. Another question here by Steven. Does DK price accordingly on hitters for a 7-inning game? I think it probably depends. Like if it's a makeup game from the night before, maybe pricing's already out. They've already ran their algorithm. But I think for the most part, you're seeing decreased prices on these Reds, like Suarez at 4,400, Winker under 4K, Votto 4,200. Moustakas looks like priced like normal at 5,100 here. But even the secondary guys all priced in the 2s, 6 through 9 for this Red stack. So I would say yes, when they know it's going to be a doubleheader days beforehand.
Yeah, it seems like, and that's a good call by what you said there. Just clicking through some of the other games, it does look like they kept the star players kind of up in that high, that 5K range, but they dropped everybody else. So interesting. I hadn't thought to look at that.
Yeah. All right, let's move it on to the next game. Another 4:10 Eastern start. We've got the Phillies and the Marlins. 4 implied total for the Phillies, 4.6 for the Marlins. Vince Velasquez, Pablo Lopez Velasquez coming in at 6,300, but a pretty high implied total going up against him against this surprising Marlins team. Pablo Lopez at 7,200, the favorite here about minus 130. I read your quick hits article, and Terry does the quick hits for anybody that doesn't know. MLB article every day takes a look at stacks and ownership. That is an absolutely free article. So go to the MLB tab to click on that. And I saw you had some interest in the Marlins. So you want to talk about them against the volatile Vince Velasquez here?
Volatile Vince. That is pretty apt. That's his thing. He's just a little bit all over the place all the time. He's really prone to putting guys on base. 137 career whip. So he's always walking guys, always got guys on base, and then he gives up the home run. So he's a guy we can target for that big knock and try and get exactly what we want out of a stack. And I think the Marlins are improved. The offense isn't quite as ugly as it looked a couple of weeks ago. Just taking a look, and if you go by the numbers for what they've done so far this year, it looks pretty ugly. They're 29th in baseball with 27 home runs against righties, tied with the Pirates for dead last with a 136 ISO. But they have a 95 WRC plus through that sample. Pittsburgh's, who they're tied with in ISO, is at 66. So they've been producing runs better than other bad offenses. And I think they've done enough to improve this offense through the addition of Starling Marte and through the call-ups of Isan Diaz and Jazz Chisholm that, especially from the left side of the plate, if Vince has one of those bumpy games where he's walking the world, we can definitely get to him here. And I like some of the lefty upside. I like some of the lefty power. Part of it is lineup dependent. I want to see Jazz Chisholm get in that lineup at the back end so that we can put him next to Diaz and run like a Diaz Chisholm wraparound up to a Dickerson Marte, Aguilar, Dickerson Marte, Joyce up top. And then I think you can build with the middle of that stack as well. Just something straight line from a Dickerson, Marte, Aguilar, Joyce, Anderson, or Cooper in there. There's enough there. There's some power in there, and there are guys who can hit. So against a pitcher like Vince, I don't hate doing it. And this is one of our 4 full games. The other games have a matchup between Dinelson Lamet and Clayton Kershaw, a matchup between Jose Berrios and Dylan Cease, who I know Cease has been a little bumpy, but he could definitely put up a big game. So it's not a great spot for a lot of offenses. And picking from the teams that are playing full games, the Marlins actually look to be one of the better options. They're drawing a ton of ownership on DK from what I'm seeing now that I'm looking at the ownership because their pricing is so low, which I was kind of expecting. That's why they landed in the chalky stacks piece last night. So we'll look today after the show. I'll write out stack slants and see where we get different. But I think these Marlins are really in play tonight.
Yeah, I didn't want to raid on your parade, so I'm glad you mentioned the top stacks. Look, I mean, they still have one of the highest top stack probabilities of everyone. They're one of the 9 inning games, as you mentioned. Highest top value percentage on DK by a decent amount. And then their ownership is high, but they're not the highest. There's a couple teams around them, Atlanta that we'll get to, and then Minnesota is going to just be super popular. They're on every slate. They're going to be the most popular team, I think, by a long shot.
Yeah, and I don't think people will respect Cease in that spot. So I think the Twins will get ownership there. If you just take a quick peek at the individual ownership, a lot of that is boosted up by we've got min price Matt Joyce hitting cleanup. He's drawing like 30% right now. We were expecting that he was going to get a huge number. He's a guy that if you get 3 guys on base in front of him, he's a great bet at that price to put one over the wall for you. So I like him there, but he's tough to justify at 30%. But then you can get to guys, Anderson's under 10, Cooper's right around 10. Aguilar's like 15 and Marte's like 12. So you can build a little 4-man with those guys and then attach one of the higher end guys and not really sweat the ownership too much. So the team ownership's being pulled up a little bit by some of those like ridiculously popular guys, but they're definitely be people on this team.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I mean, you should always look at the top stack tool. I think when you're building, whether you're hand building or using an optimizer, just to see the optimizer plays, which plays are a little bit tougher to get to. But you should also look at individual ownership if you're worried about stacking a team. There's three guys soaking up a ton of ownership on this Marlins stack that's bringing it up. And two of them are just super cheap in Diaz and Joyce. And then, I mean, there's a couple guys in the low double digits, like 10, 13%. You can get Brian Anderson at under 10% right now on DK. So the full stack actually probably won't be 20% owned. It will be popular, and especially as fill-ins, those two or three guys at the top. But I don't think this is one you need to get off of. If it had a 3% chance of being the top stack and it was super high value and they had a 3.6 implied total instead of 4.6, then yeah, I would look to go elsewhere. But right now, their individual ownerships don't look too ridiculous for me to get off this team. And I'm starting a ton of my teams with Bauer. So I will have some Marlins. Phillies are a pretty tough team to get to. You're going to start with Bauer. You've got Harper at 5,700, Real Muto at 5,100. And then even some of the guys you're not as wild about, Segura and Gregorius, are both in the mid fours. Do you see yourself getting any Phillies against Pablo Lopez here?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we're probably we're gonna need some big bats from somewhere, right? And this is, again, it's one of the full 9-inning games. So just looking at the top stacks, they're ranked fifth on DK, but they're going a little bit under owned because of that pricing. So this is one of the spots where we can maybe squeeze out a little bit of advantage when we talk about ownership and we talk about leverage. That 5,700 price is keeping Harper's ownership down under 5%. We're getting some of the other hitters in that lineup are getting up around 10, but that's workable for a short-ish kind of a slate. So depending on how the lineup falls too, I think they're dealing with some bumps and bruises on Real Muto and a couple of the other guys, Hoskins, I think. So we might see a guy like Alec Bohm move up the lineup. We might see a guy like Adam Hazley move up the lineup, and those guys are going to be cheap. Those guys will get more ownership, I think, if they move up, and it'll do interesting things to the team number. But I think we could still pick off like a Hoskins, McCutchen, Didi. I don't really have much problem rolling Didi out there most of the time. So I can do that, even though you are taking shortstop down a peg by putting him in there. He's capable. He can hit the ball over the wall. Segura, not as much, but every now and then you get a little power out of him. You get a little speed out of him. So I can justify it if nobody else is going to those guys as far as a construction and as far as a short slate without a ton of good options for offense. Don't love the pricing on them. I wish some of these bats were less expensive. Definitely would be easier to get to a Didi and a Segura if they were a few $100 less. I like the looks of like a McCutchen for 41 though. I'll always pay McCutchen at a discount. So I don't mind this stack, and I think we can probably lean into it a little bit. Lopez, not much in terms of like strikeouts. He limits home runs a little bit. He's given up 3 in 40 innings this year. He's a career 4.14 xFIP over 210 innings, 57% ground balls, which is where the ability to limit power comes from. Decent whiff on his four-seamer, but he doesn't have a ton of stuff, doesn't have a ton of strikeout stuff. So I think the Phillies could get to him here.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of getting to Phillies. I'm not getting to them much right now. I'm getting to, like if I'm going up to the top, I like going to the Dodgers against Lamet as kind of a leverage play, or going with the Chalky Twins. Like I get why they're going to be popular. Mm-hmm. Going with a couple teams with huge power. And I think I'm going to get to them a little bit more than the Phillies here.
Makes sense. And looking at the top stacks, the Dodgers look to be in a great spot too. They're a couple spots above the Phils and also going under owned. And when we get there, I imagine we'll see that's for the same reason with pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move it on to the third game. It looks like I knew this was going to happen. I had the wrong pitchers listed. So let me know if you've got the Brewers and the Cardinals. I've got Kwang Hyung Kim and Josh Lindblom. Is that who you have going?
That is who I have going.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. 3.2 implied total for the Cards, 3.4 for the Brewers. Is going to be a 5:10 Eastern start. This is the first game of their doubleheader. So this is going to be a 7-inning doubleheader, and that's why you're seeing the tiny implied totals. Kim at 7K, Lindblom at 7,400. Lindblom looks like a pretty popular play over on DK at 7,400. Where does he kind of rank in your hierarchy of pitchers between like the Lopez, Velasquez? I guess we could throw Cease in there, but it's really Kim, Lindblom, Velasquez, and Lopez in the 6 to 7K range for guys that we're looking at. So what are you seeing for Lindblom against the Cardinals here?
Yeah, I like Lindblom. He's a guy that had some hopes for coming back over from the KBO, and he came over with a just variety of pitches. He throws all of them. He's got 6 different pitches in his mix, and he throws each at least 9% usage. So he's throwing a bunch of junk up there. He gets good whiff on fastball, slider, a splitter, and a curveball. He's allowed 3 home runs this year on his four-seamer. It's a 2,500 RPM four-seamer that works and has a nice rising effect to it. So might have just been a case where he left a couple pitches just hanging up in the zone a little bit, didn't get enough on them. 14 strikeouts on that pitch this year, 12 with his splitter, throws all his pitches to both hands. He's rejoining the rotation. He pitched the last 2 times out of the pen, just saw an inning out of the pen. He was like the 5th banana in the rotation, and they put him in the bullpen because they had just scheduling issues. So wasn't really performance-based, but could be a little bit of a question about whether we're going to see a full 5 out of him, full 6 out of him, but I don't really worry too much about it. Cardinals, 31 home runs is 27th in baseball against righties. It's somewhat limited by the fact that they missed like 2 weeks of the season and haven't made up all those games yet. But they're also 27th in ISO at 141. So not generating a ton of power against right-handed pitching. So I think Lindblom could put up a decent start here. He ranks, for me, I kind of agree with where Alex has him. He's like below the top tier, but he's probably out of those guys in that 7K range, my favorite. I would put Cease above him just in terms of I like Cease's upside. I see talent there, and I'll probably go down in flames with him again tonight. But I think we could. I think that's probably how I would rank it. But yeah, I like Lindblom here and get a decent little projection.
Yeah, I like Lindblom as well. Right now, he's my second highest owned pitcher, but take that with a grain of salt because I have, like I said, 88% Bauer, and then it drops off a cliff. And Lindblom's my second highest owned pitcher at 20.7%. So it's just going to be a bunch of Bauer, and then mix in all these guys is how I'd be playing this slate. What about bats in this game with the 7 innings? With the 7-inning doubleheader they've got for both of their games tonight, with this one being the one on the slate, you're seeing the tiny implied totals. It just really knocks off any stackability, I guess, unless these 2 teams are getting completely unowned. But looking at the top stack tool, Milwaukee, really low chance of being the top stack. They're technically under-owned. St. Louis, kind of the same deal. They're just not going to get stacked at all. So is there one that you would rather go to over the other in this game?
Yeah, I think if I, gun to my head, hanging over a pit of vipers or something, so I have to play one of these teams, it would probably be the Brewers. Just they profile okay against left-handed pitching. Not a ton of home runs. They're 13th with 17 home runs, but they're 6th with a 219 ISO in the split and 120 WRC plus. So 20% better than average at creating runs against lefties. We've talked about this lineup not being what we expected them to be, but that comes more against right-handed pitching. So that would be the team I would go to, but totally agree. I think this is a bad spot for offense. 7-inning game, limited opportunity here. I'm curious, actually, and I got to ask the boss because he's got a note on the top stacks tool that it doesn't account for the 7-inning game factor, and we're still getting these teams ranked all the way down at the bottom. So I'm curious if he's changed that and forgot to take the note down so that it does account for the 7 innings and they're ranked appropriately from that, or these teams just suck, and even if it was a 9-inning game, they'd be ranked this way. I'm really curious.
I would think that he fixed that.
I would guess so. Or the run total maybe fixed it.
Yeah, just because, so the implied total, and his implied total is going to be tiny because he projects every game. He comes up with his own implied totals, and they're a little bit different from what you'd see like on an actual betting site. But yeah, just looking at how low, like the Cardinals are at 0.2%, 0.2% of being the top stack, 5%. I'm sorry, I messed that up. 0.2% ownership share, 5% top stack. So hard to say. It's going to be a low probability regardless, whatever way you slice it. If it's a 9-inning game, if it's a 7-inning game, these two teams aren't ones that I'm looking to get to very often, but I do agree. I think I would get to the Brewers more often than the Cardinals here. Let's head on over to Atlanta and Baltimore. This is going to be one we're going to have to talk about for bats. Touki Toussaint and Jorge Lopez are your pitchers. 5.8 implied total for the Braves. Highest on the slate by a pretty good margin. About a full run over the next best team. And then 4.4 for the Orioles. And they're priced pretty well. You want to get the pitchers out of the way here, Toussaint and Lopez. Do you have any interest in either of these guys?
Lopez, no, not really. Toussaint, maybe. I think maybe we can justify some Touki. We're short on options overall. He's cheap. That would be the biggest things in his favor. We've seen him get dinged up a little bit in some of his starts that he made. He's coming back. This is his first action since August 23rd. So I'm not even sure what the leash is going to be. And so it would be a price play. It would be a little bit of an upside play against what I consider to be a not that great lineup. The kid does have potential. He does have some strikeout stuff. 28 strikeouts in his 21 2/3 innings so far this year. But like I said, he's made mistakes. He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to leave pitches hanging. And that's kind of what's happened to him. He's getting decent whiff on his splitter and his breaking balls, but everything's been hit hard this year. He's given up 2 home runs on his fastball, 2 on his slider, and 1 on his curveball. So to me, that doesn't show much of it as that he's really struggling so much as growing pains. Kid who's just made a couple mistakes. So maybe we could get away with a good start from him against a not that great offense. But the Orioles' active roster does rank 13th in baseball with 44 home runs in the split, 15th with 176 ISO, and they've got a 105 WRC plus. So they're better at creating runs than the average. So it's a tricky spot for him. It's not one I would push on people, let's put it that way, but it's one I'll probably put in my own lineups.
Yeah, I like getting to some Toussaint. I'm over the field on him right now. But I would really like to have flat exposures for my non-Bauer pitchers. So he would just be another guy that I mix in. I don't think there's a slam dunk option on the slate besides Bauer. You've got matchup concerns with pretty much every other pitcher. And not only matchup concerns, but just general question of, are these guys even good pitchers or not? So it's just a matter of making the prices work. I'm really focusing on bats and Trevor Bauer tonight and differentiating elsewhere. Now, bats in this game, I think we're probably going to have interest on both sides. Toussaint's been a little bit shaky, and then the Braves have a 5.8 implied total. Right now, the highest percentage chance of being the top stack on DraftKings 7-game slate. Who are your favorite Braves bats here?
Can I just say 1 through 9? Pretty much everybody.
That works perfectly. There you go.
I wrote that in my column last night, dude. This team is loaded top to bottom right now. So I think we could get into basically any piece of this lineup. You're gonna sacrifice some plate appearances if you just stack with the bottom, but your projected 7, 8, 9 hitters are Adam Duvall, Austin Riley, and Ozzie Albies. I mean, and that's fantastic. And they're 45, 45, and 4,400. So you're not even spending that much to grab that little 3-man. Those righties kill right-handed pitching. They've been absolutely crushing righties. So people might go away from a guy like an Adam Duvall thinking he's an all-or-nothing home run hitter, probably struggles against same-handed pitching. This year, 11 of his 13 home runs are against same-handed pitching. He's carrying a 257, 315, 614 slash with a 356 ISO against righties this year. He's murdering right-handed pitching. Riley has 6 of his 7 home runs against righties, 197 ISO and a WRC plus, just a % below league average. So we'll forgive that. We'll call that league average. If we include last year, he's got 17 home runs, a 199 ISO, and 351 plate appearances against righties. So those two have big home run upside. And then you get to Ozzie Albies, who works as a wraparound. He can cap off the end of the stack for you. I just love the bottom of the lineup. And then, by the way, you go up to the top of the lineup, you've got Acuna, Freddie Freeman, Ozuna, who's smoking everything this year. Top to bottom, we can work with the Braves here, and just however you can fit them in.
Yeah, Braves, I think a lot of people's top stack on the night, and I certainly get that. They're going to be up there for me. Top stack percentage, very high. Ownership percentage, high. But if you do full stack them, it's probably unlikely that you're going to get a popular pitcher pairing. So that's what I like about them. You might have to get off Bauer if you want to stack, top 4 or 5 guys. And there's always some merit in getting unique lineup construction. So I think the Braves do offer that. Orioles got a couple cheap guys batting near the top. Mullins, one of the more popular guys on the slate, DJ Stewart at 2,400. Man, they look like a pretty good value, but when that's the case, they usually go a little bit over-owned. Do you like Baltimore here?
I can get to some based on value, but just looking at the top stacks, around 12% team ownership, I could be around that. If it goes higher, which I expect it will, just as people start actually building for this slate and realizing that there's not a lot to work with, I might come in under it. I'll definitely have some, though. I mean, I think against Tucson, who we've seen get lit up, even without a Santander in this lineup, I think there's enough to work with around the guys that you named, plus Renato Nunez, Ryan Mountcastle in there. Mountcastle in particular, good amount of pop, very high pedigree kid coming up here. He's only 3,500 and only drawing like 13.5% ownership in the projection right now. So I really like that bat. He's got a handful of home runs already this year, 4 home runs already this year in his 82 plate appearances, 347, 415, 569 slash, 222 ISO, WRC plus 65% above average. So pretty darn good start to a career. So I can definitely grab some of him and then just build around him. He's in a big RBI spot hitting 5th. And then, I would start from Mullins, go down to him, or, pick a spot in the lineup around him and DJ Stewart, something like that.
Yeah, Mountcastle shipped my money. Adam Scher's favorite player ever, apparently. He's been tweeting about Mountcastle every time this guy dongs. Adam's saying that he's basically Mike Trout, but better. So we'll see. We'll see. Bold predictions there. But, yeah, definitely a promising start to his career. $3,500, get a pretty good price. With actually one of the better implied totals because of how the slate shakes out here. 4.4 is usually, bottom 10% or so on a full slate. But here, that's the 3rd highest total we've talked about so far through 4 games. So they're definitely they're easily in the top half for Baltimore, which is kind of crazy. But that's what 7-inning doubleheaders do. Let's go to the Twins and the White Sox. We've got a 4.9 implied total for the Twins, 4.2 for the Sox. Jose Barrios and Dylan Cease are your pitchers. Barrios about a minus 130, 135 favorite. Cease, 8,400. Do you have any interest in him going up against the popular Twins bats? And I think I already know the answer, but what do you want to tell the audience?
Yeah, I'll have some Cease. He's a guy I like. I think there's a ton of upside in the arm. We've seen it as far as the talent, the stuff, but he's just never been able to put it together. He's a strikeout pitcher, and he's only striking out 15.4% of hitters this year, which is very concerning. And just looking at it, it's not like he's focusing on control and command, because he's still walking like 10.4% of hitters, which is right around, or 10.3, which is right around his career average and his minor league trends. So I'm trying to explain the lack of strikeouts. I'm trying to explain the power that he's given up this year and what's going on. I was talking about it with Jason last night, and this is me just completely spitballing something. But the only thing I can find that he's doing different this year is he's throwing his slider with a lot more spin on it, which suggests that he changed the dynamic of how he snaps that pitch off or how he grips it. That pitch is doing fine, but his curveball is getting smoked, and his curveball is not getting nearly the whiff that it used to. So I'm theorizing wildly that maybe something with how he grips or how he releases his slider is tipping when he doesn't do that with his curveball and he's throwing the other breaking pitch. Total guess on my part, total speculation, something I want to watch for in this start. I think the kid's got upside. I think he's got opportunity. He could put up a decent strikeout game, 25.2% strikeout rate against righties for this Twins team, but they do have a lot of power. 4th in baseball with 59 home runs, 212 ISO, and a 110 WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. I think it's much more likely we see the Twins' power come through than a 8-9 strikeout game from Dylan Cease, but I'm probably going to roll some of them out there in case we do get that game from him. So tricky spot. 7,500 on FanDuel is a little bit more comfy if you needed the savings. Some of their prices have come up, so they're doing a little bit better of a job there. 84 on DraftKings. little tougher to justify, but he's not really getting owned because of that. So you're getting like a 4x advantage on his ownership compared to his probability of being in the top 2, which I like.
Yeah. Man, you can even find, so if you do believe in Cease, another great part about Odd Shopper is just you can find the best price. He's plus 114 at some books. He's plus 125. The White Sox are to win this game. It wouldn't be very surprising if the Sox did win this game. I mean, this was a guy that people were high on, it sounds like including yourself, coming into the season, maybe just run into a couple tough starts. It is a tough matchup, but if he can get strikeouts, I don't even mind that number. I don't bet MLB much, but it sounds like this is more of a coin flip game. So make your way on over to Odd Shopper. If you're a Cease believer, you're going to get a pretty good number. Twins bats are very popular. You could also just, play him in DFS. He's pretty cheap, but he's kind of in no man's land for me over on DraftKings. Like I mentioned, I'm playing, well, both of these guys are, but I'm playing a ton of Bauer. And so I don't think I'm going to get to a lot of Barrios or Cease. It's just a pricing thing. Need some money for bats. Can't really pair those two guys together. Twins are popular. I do like them, but hearing you talk about Cease, and I think I've been maybe last week we talked about Cease as well. You're convincing me maybe to get off of some of these Twins. I'm always looking for reasons to get off of a popular stack. They're stacked, no pun intended. But there's also some other good options with the Braves and the Dodgers if you're looking to spend up a little bit. So I don't think I'm going to get to where the field's at on the Twins. Looking at my exposures right now, I will be getting to a bunch of Dodgers, as we'll talk about in a bit. Any interest in White Sox bats against Barrios? Are you a Barrios believer?
Yeah, I kind of fall into the middle ground with him. I don't know if he's for real. He's just so all over the place as far as what his results look like, so I'm not sure. Against this White Sox team, I think these White Sox can definitely get to him. In looking at it, he's been great his last 4 starts. I stole the blurb directly from MLB.com, so this is theirs. But 183, 272, 280 slash across his last 4 starts, 31 strikeouts in 22 2/3 innings. Before that, he was having kind of a bumpy season. Giving up a ton of medium contact, but he's limiting hard contact, but also not inducing a lot of soft contact this year. Fastball's up about a mile an hour. He's throwing it a little bit less. So not sure what to make of him. The mix is basically the same. He's giving up like right around average contact. His strikeouts are decent, 71st percentile in strikeout rate, 70th in whiff rate. So he's got decent arsenal of swing and miss stuff. And there are some strikeouts in this White Sox lineup, 25.3% team strikeout rate and only a 7.2% walk rate in the split. So you could argue that he could put up a decent start here, a decent strikeout start. But the White Sox also 7th with 51 home runs, 179 team ISO, not as good as I was expecting, 14th in the league, but a 109 WRC plus, so above average creating runs against righties. I would lean more toward the White Sox side. And when this team isn't getting ownership, that's when I like to jump on. And they are not getting ownership here. They're super expensive. So it's going to limit what you can do with the Bowers of the world. But if I'm building with like a Miami that we talked about earlier, this is a team that I want to connect them to. So you've got 3 of those Marlins hitters and then help it pay for some of these White Sox hitters. There's just an immense amount of power in this offense. And it's another team that basically I can argue a 1 through 9 on this team. I don't get as good home run marks as I normally would be in my model just because of the quality of the pitcher on the other side, but they're still trending toward the high side of the average range. So I really like these guys 1 through 9. Timmy Anderson's a star hitting off playing shortstop. I don't think you lose much of anything playing Tim Anderson over like a Tatis at shortstop. So I think you're fine doing that. And then you roll through the first baseman, the catcher, and the outfielders on this team. There's just a ton to love. Nick Madrigal, sneaky hitting 9th as a second baseman for cheap. So definitely think we can get on.
I always get Madrigal using Alex's projections.
Yeah.
He's owned. And it looks like he's not that bad of a hitter based on how we project him. I always wanted Barrios to be better. So that's why I was asking you about him. Are you a believer? It looks like his K rate's up from previous seasons. Maybe he'll continue to take more steps into being an ace. But I thought this guy was going to be an ace 3 years ago, and he's been solid. But not quite like a Trevor Bauer level where you're striking out like Garrett Cole, 30+% of guys.
But he seems like a guy who does have that stuff. So like maybe find something, or I don't want to say it because if he leaves the team and ends up with a different pitching coach, maybe they bring in a different pitching coach and who teaches him something and add a little spin. Because I don't have it in front of me, but I think that his stuff lacks spin, so he doesn't have that dynamic effect that some of these other guys and some of the guys that you just named have on some of their stuff. So yeah, maybe change up the mix, add some spin, do something, and he could get there because he does have that upside. He does have that stuff for sure.
Twins just not a very sharp organization. We can say it. They've had issues developing pitchers. Let's talk about, and this one is not on some of these lineup pages. I'm seeing Oakland and Seattle is on the DraftKings slate. Now, for pitching, I have Luzardo and Marco Gonzalez. 6 implied total, 3.2 going to Oakland, 2.8 going to Seattle. This is I believe this is the last 7-inning doubleheader of the night. Feels like every game has been that. This is going to be a 5:10 Eastern start. Just a really tricky slate, tricky day of MLB games all around. So just pay attention to which site you're playing on, when it locks at, because it's all over the place today, whether you're playing the early slate on FanDuel, the main slate on DK, the main slate on Yahoo. It's all over the place. So we're trying to navigate through this with you guys. Luzardo at 8,300 and Marco Gonzalez at 7K. This is my least exposed game right now across the board. What's your favorite parts of this game? Just take it wherever you'd like.
I like the pitching on both sides. I think we can work with these pitchers. I'm curious, are they not on the top stacks right now? Or the top pitchers right now?
So that could be why I didn't get to them.
I was just going to click over to see what Alex thinks. I think the boss might have missed him on that, which I think we can forgive him for on this wacky slate with the way the stuff's coming together. So we'll get that updated for everybody out there. But yeah, I think I do like both pitchers in this one. Luzardo's a guy that I've been on since before he made it to the league. I really, really like the kid. Think there's a ton of upside there. Excellent stuff. And going up against a weak Mariners lineup in one of these 7-inning games. So we talked about the potential, the upside to get to a complete game. The same is true for Marco. Marco's pitching really well. And these A's aren't handling left-handed pitching as well as we would think with all the right-handed hitting in that lineup. So I think we can make an argument for either pitcher. And I think it's an interesting construction to take only pitchers from these 7-inning games. And with the pricing on Marco, you can probably, and I haven't tried to do it since I talked about it last night, but if you snap Marco together with Bauer and then start building with your bats, you're getting two guys with increased upside of a win, increased upside of a complete game. Marco I think he pitched a complete game last time out or the time before, went 7 innings against a good team the time before that. Jason was reading him off to me on the early bird last night. He's been pitching well and against good teams and deep into games. I think there could be advantage in pairing a Marco and a Bauer and then figuring out what you're going to do with bats. So I really want to see how my constructions come together with this team, with these two pitchers in particular. I mentioned the A's. I'll just pull it up here so I can give the numbers. The Mariners are going up against Luzardo. Mariners are 27th in baseball with a 130 ISO, 36% below average WRC plus against lefties. As a team, their triple slash is 182, 272, 311 against lefties. That is bad. Hitting under the Mendoza line as a team against lefties. So I think we can definitely weaponize Luzardo there. And then the A's on the other side, you think about all those right-handed bats that they're probably going to be pretty good, but they're 24th in baseball, only 11 home runs. It's a limited sample. They've only seen 346 plate appearances, which is 25th in baseball. The Mets are first with 631 in the split. So the home runs are a little bit wonky, but they've only got a 162 ISO against lefties and a 102 WRC plus. So 2% above average in creating runs, but not as significant as I thought their offense would be in the split. So I think we could definitely see some action here on both pitchers.
Yeah, I like Marco a little bit now, the more that I look at this. I don't know that I'm going to get to Luzardo again, just kind of in the cease range, a little bit of a dead range for me. Oakland, so they had a big loss yesterday. Matt Chapman out for the rest of the season, which absolutely stinks for this team. That's pretty exciting. And he was I mean, taking him out of that lineup that's already not great against lefties is going to be favorable for Marco. So I don't mind him for 7K. I guess I'm not excited about much of anything in this game from a hitting perspective, just because it is another 7-inning game. So I don't really have much else to add to what you said, Terry. So if we're good moving on from this one, we can go to the last game. Unless let me know.
I don't think we really need bats in that one either. I'm with you on that.
All right, let's go to the final game of the slate, and then we will get out of here. Right after this, we've got the NFL strategy show, the Monday morning quarterback. I believe, let me check on this. I believe it's Laffy, Josh. Let me see here. Oh, we don't have our schedule updated, but I believe it's Laffy, Josh, and Adam Scherer going over what happened for NFL Week 1, how we can learn from it. Pretty cool show. Played NFL DFS. You can go tilt in the chat. We've also got Showdown NFL projection, NFL rankings, not projections. Projections are behind the paywall for today. Rankings are free. So if you want to see Saquon as an AA value, there you go. But I think the rankings are really awesome to identify low-owned players as well. You might get guys with some like maybe bad value, but wide range of outcomes. Those are the type of guys that can take down a showdown slate for you in NFL DFS. So I'll be using the projections, but you guys can use the rankings for free today. We've also got MLB player rankings are also going to be free today. So if you're playing some MLB, you're going to want to check those out. Pay attention to the 7-inning games, but the rankings do that for you. So you don't really have to worry about that if you're over on Awesemo.com. Clayton Kershaw and Dinelson Lamet, two quality pitchers on the mound here. 4.3 implied total for the Dodgers, 3.7 for the Pods. Kershaw 10-4, Lamet 9,100. Man, can you make a case for any of these guys over Trevor Bauer, or is the ownership gap wide enough between Bauer and these guys to get to them? What do you see here, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, Clay Kershaw is Clay Kershaw. That's the end of my argument for why you play Clay Kershaw, right?
Fair enough.
I've always trusted him. He's kind of back to, I don't know if he's back to his old self, but he's definitely back to being a very reliable, very good pitcher. 1.98 ERA this year with a 2.99 xFIP backing that up in his 41 innings. Doing what he does, same stuff, same pitch mix, leaning on his four-seamer, his slider, his curveball, getting good whiff on all three pitches. Slider's the best pitch. His strikeouts are back up 28.2%. So he'd been struggling when people were worried about where he's at. He was down to 23.8% in 2018. Last year brought it back up to 26.8%. And again, he's up even further this year. So I don't really worry about Clay Kershaw. The one thing that would be the concern is the Padres. You know, their offense, 5th in baseball with 21 home runs against lefties, and that's in only 495 plate appearances. So we mentioned the Mets are first in baseball against lefties with 631 plate appearances. They've only hit 22 home runs in the sample. So the Pods definitely hit the ball out of the yard against lefties. 104 WRC plus, so not producing a ton of runs by doing it. But that would be your argument against Kershaw, as this offense is very good. On the other side, kind of a similar situation. Lamet is a very, very good strikeout pitcher. Last out, he went 7 2/3, struck out 11 Rockies, gave up 6 hits, no runs, no walks. He had given up in each of 5 starts before that. He had given up 1 home run, but he managed to not do that last time. Was still getting the strikeouts, getting a ridiculous amount of whiff on his slider. It's just a sick pitch. Works off of a 97-mile-an-hour heavy spin fastball that's up in the zone, and guys can't touch it. So he's got tremendous strikeout upside. But the Dodgers are very good at limiting strikeouts against lefties. 21.8% for the team this year, 9th best in baseball. They're only 16th in the league with 15 home runs in the split, 23rd with a 151 ISO, and their WRC plus is below average. So I was a little surprised by that for a team whose offense we really respect. So it's kind of a wacky spot. Everything is working in different ways. I think Lamet could have a good strikeout game here, and I think he could limit the Dodgers offense, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm not as confident in rolling him out as I normally would be. And the price is big. FanDuel in particular, 10-1 is tough to justify against this team. 9-1, I can work with a little bit more on DraftKings. So I'll have more shares of them over there for sure.
Yeah, I love the Dodgers tonight. Nothing against Lamet. Just a volatile guy. Gives up a bunch of hard contact, and the Dodgers are just elite against righties. Third highest WRC plus, second highest ISO. I mean, they're absolutely stacked. Maybe the most stacked lineup in the MLB. What's that?
You said righty. I just realized I screwed that up. Why did I have him as a lefty?
Who?
I was reading lefty splits. Ignore the
Lamet?
splits I just gave, guys. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. It's gonna happen. Hey, at least we got all the pitchers right today on this crazy slate. So I like the Dodgers. It's kind of an under-owned stack. We played a bunch of them against Lamet, and hope we get a bad Lamet start, and the Dodgers do Dodgers things. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this game. Not going to get to a lot of pitchers, although I agree. I'd rather get to some Kershaw as a pivot off of Bauer. If you were going to go that route, I don't think I'm going to go that route very often today, and a really tough matchup against these Padres who are just loaded with power. Got anything else left on this slate, or do you want to get out of here?
Do you think on the offensive side, do you think it makes sense to maybe build with some Padres against Kershaw there? They don't look like they're drawing much ownership at all.
Yeah, I think a low-owned Tatis at 5,600, people will see the matchup with Kershaw and they'll just go elsewhere. So you go like Tatis and maybe Nola is kind of expensive. Maybe like Tatis Myers or Tatis Nola Myers or Machado. Like you take one of Machado and Tatis and grab another cheaper guy, and there could be like your 5-2 or 5-3 stack. So
yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting with some of the lefties in that lineup. Like a Grisham kind of struggles in the split, if I'm remembering correctly. Moreland much better against righties, so it's taking some of that out. Hosmer was not having him in that lineup. He's fairly capable against lefties, so that's going to hurt him a little bit. But yeah, I think we can definitely build with some Padres there.
I like it. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys watching. We are a couple minutes late. NFL guys will be coming up, not on this channel, but on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Make sure you check that show out. Showdown rankings are free. Hit the like button on the way out. Terry and I will see you guys tomorrow.